Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 3 of Amazon Prime's Invincible, entitled This Missive, That Machination. So, this episode's interesting to me because it's very similar to the last one, which I had a lot of issues with. However, by being slightly more targeted and having the scenes flow a bit smoother, this episode worked a lot better, I think, than its predecessor. And while it is still flawed, it is just better than the previous one. For example, in this episode, we get this origin story for Alan the alien in the middle of the episode, which, by the way, is the reason for the episode title. That's the name of the, I guess, this like weird documentary, these docu-series thing that we see on Alan the alien in this episode. It was like a documentary TV show about Alan's life, and the episode title was the name of that show. Anyway, if they had given us a scene or two, went somewhere else, then came back, then went somewhere different, then came back, then this would have felt like the previous episode. But they continued the Alan story without within a certain chunk of the episode. Like, I think it was like, I don't think it started from the very beginning. I think maybe we got like 2 scenes or something like that first. But what they ended up doing instead was they contained the Alan story within a certain chunk of the episode. So that helped alleviate that kind of like herky-jerky feeling we got last week of jumping all over the place, with this kind of like, that it felt like a random collection of scenes, right? And since we're here, though, I feel like this might be a good time, maybe, for me to start talking about Alan's story. Essentially, Alan was created to be able to defeat Viltrumites. As people had multiple times before, Alan, too, fails at this task, and this is how he ends up being the surveyor of planets that Mark met last season. After the events of last season, when Alan meets Mark, Alan takes this information back to his leader, Optimus Prime. And yeah, sure, I know the guy has some other name in this episode, Thaddeus or some shit, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. That voice actor, Peter Cullen, will never be anyone other than Optimus Prime. So when I say Optimus going forward, that is the person I'm referring to. He's only his real life name, Peter Cullen, and he's Optimus Prime, and that's it. So Optimus wants to use Mark against the Viltrumites, of course, but he pulls Alan to the side and tells him that he thinks there's a mole that is informing the Viltrumites of their activities, and he wants Alan to find the mole. Alan then tells his girlfriend a little bit later, who absolutely has to be the mole. Like, I don't see the girlfriend's definitely the mole, right? And then Alan gets attacked and nearly killed by Viltrumites. I don't know how he didn't die. They beat his eye out, chopped his arm off, and then bitch slapped him with his own arm. So I don't know how one lives through that, but somehow he's alive. He's hooked up to machines though, but he's alive. That is until Optimus himself comes and finishes him off. And then they hit us with like the closing credits of the documentary within the episode, and it threw me off for a bit. I'm like, wait, what's going on? But yeah, it took me a second to realize that. But we were only like halfway through the actual episode by that point, so that's kind of what threw me off. Now, that was a compelling story they set up, and it only took them maybe 15 minutes or so to do it, but I am concerned with how many various plot threads this show is creating and then not addressing before they create new ones. Like, I want to know why Optimus killed Alan. I'm interested in that. I want Mark to find out about it. But can we stop introducing new plot threads now? Like, the Angstrom-Levy plotline that was introduced in episode 1 has gotten no attention since, other than that one fucking post-credit scene. The plotline with Eve and her father and her using her powers arrogantly and that family getting hurt, like, we didn't see any of that at all this week. And I don't mind not having every plotline further each week, but don't... So this is a double negative, but it's intentional, and you're going to see why. Don't not further multiple plot lines while continuing to introduce new ones. That's the part that bothers me. Like, I don't want 17 dangling chads by the season finale. Like, if they keep this up, it's going to be hard to keep track of each plot line. Also, don't not further multiple plot lines that are interesting, but then further the fucking Rexplode, duplicate, immortal fucking three-way plot line that I don't give a fuck about. We see that shit every fucking week. Do you guys care about that? I know you don't, because it's not interesting. I don't care about that. Why do I keep having to see the least interesting plot thread every single fucking week, but the most interesting stuff gets put on the back burner to introduce more stuff? Like, that's where I feel like this season's fucking up. Like, Kate's like, Duplicate's like, he's the only person who's died as much as I have, so he gets me. And I'm just like, I don't care why you're fucking that man. It's not important. Like, I'm certain this is gonna go somewhere eventually, but it's just not enjoyable. It's not interesting, and I don't give a fuck right now. And I'm like, they give me this shit every fucking week. And then, like, I do like Shapesmith, for instance, constantly popping up and being weird, and no one but Rex really seems to care. Like, I liked when Rex asked where he was from again, and then he just starts, like, using the treadmill wrong. Like, I thought that was pretty funny. And shit, another uninteresting plotline, though, they keep subjecting me to in lieu of the other ones that I want to see, is the same. It's similar to the Rexplode one with Monster Girl and Rudy. Like, and same as that one, I suspect it's probably going to go somewhere at some point. But right now, I know y'all don't give a fuck about Rudy and Monster Girl eating burgers for the first time. Like, I have to watch them eat burgers and go to the movies when I'd rather see the Angstrom-Levy plotline, or I'd rather see the Eve one. And as a matter of fact, like, I'm just being upfront here, like, I find romantic relationships to be forced and uninteresting in practically everything that exists anyway. But for an animated superhero show to spend this much time on not one but two romantic story arcs, it seems really fucking foolish. Especially when you have compelling story arcs that matter that you're not addressing. So, like, that's my biggest issue with this show right now. Hopefully they'll stop reintroducing new shit, and then we can start seeing the furthering of what they've introduced, starting with episode 4. But then episode 4, that's the last one before they're gonna go on a break, and I don't even know when the next 4 are coming. So, like, it can be really damning for these first 4 episodes if 2 and 3 are kind of duds, and maybe even 4 is as well. But even if 4 is good, it's like, okay, fine, you give me a good episode after 2 straight dubs, and now I'm off, like, for whoever knows how long. So I don't know, man. Anyway, lastly, I want to close out with the best arc for this week, which is Debbie's, actually. And then we're going to wrap up with the little bit that happened with Mark at the end. You know, it's not that important. So, Debbie goes to a support meeting that the One Hero's widow gave him. Man, I'm blanking on both of their names. The hero and the widow was Olga. She was the wife of, Red Rush? I think his name was, something like that. But she gave her, like, this phone number for the support group. And she goes to it, Debbie does. And one of the men there invites her to a bar that a lot of them supposedly go to after meetings. It felt like a date rape setup. Like, oh, we all go to the bar. But they get there and it's just them two sitting there at the bar. I'm like, uh-oh. Put your napkin over your drink, Debbie. But everything goes well, surprisingly. And they're bonding, you know, over the loss of their loved ones, until Debbie comes to understand that Nolan killed this guy's wife. And I'm loving the Debbie arc this season. Like, a lot of shows and films have of course, dealt with loss, right? But this show is taking a unique approach toward it, with her husband technically still being alive, but just not being the person who she thought he was. So he's, like, dead to her. And it's like, okay, this person is, like, a completely different person to me. And now she has to live here on Earth without him, but still suffering the consequences of his actions, when she didn't even know what the fuck he was up to in the first place. Like, it's such a great arc, and I feel like they're executing it really, really well. And now for Mark. Mark gets laid in this episode, but by a black woman, no less. So he was truly blessed. A black woman voiced by Zazie Beetz, so it's almost kind of like, never mind. As Mark gets accustomed to college, he's visited by a real-life version of his toy Seance Dog, which is just an absolutely incredible name. Seance Dog? Like, who the fuck came up with Seance Dog? Anyway, after Mark kicks Seance Dog's ass, we learn it's actually this like bug-looking creature. I didn't write down what it was called, because like you also kind of start to pick up with this show. Sometimes you don't have to learn the name of a thing, and like that thing felt to me like, okay, it came up dressed as Seance Dog, which I didn't think I needed to care about in the first place. I made a mistake, wrote that down, and then now it's turned into this fucking cricket-looking fucking blue Jiminy Cricket thing, and I'm like, I'm not writing this shit down, and I didn't need to. I might in episode 4 though. But anyway, Mark decides to. Well, I'm sorry. So it turns into the bug creature. And the bug creature says that he's been sent to retrieve Mark to help with a world-ending threat to its own planet. And Mark decides to go, and he says he's going to be gone for a few weeks. Him and Amber have like this Spider-Man moment where he's kind of like, I can't help it, I got to go. I hope you understand. And she's like, go get him, Tiger. And then he flies away on this ship. And when he arrives on the planet, it doesn't look to be in danger, and he's told he's going to meet the Emperor. And he does, and the Emperor just so happens to be his father, and it's Nolan. So, yes, a new plot thread introduced here. Again, how did Nolan end up here? Why did he send for Mark? Why now? Also, I liked how after the reveal, if you think back, it tracks that Nolan would know what that bug creature would have to turn into in order to relax Mark. Of course Nolan would know that info, right? But, like, you don't think about that at the time. Like, he even said, like, I think the creature said something like, I was sent to be something that you would be, that would help you let your guard down, or whatever the case may be. And yeah, I feel like we all should have at least suspected that maybe Nolan was behind that, but I didn't. Yeah, like I said, this episode felt a little bit less all over the place than last week's, and it did some great work on the Debbie plotline. I also find the Alan and Nolan ones introduced here to be good as well. I would just like the two uninteresting romantic plotlines to become interesting, and for them to start furthering the plotlines that are interesting a lot more than they have so far. I don't want to see another new fucking plotline introduced next week. That's good. That's gonna be a big problem, especially if they have another episode like this, and then it's like, yeah, now 3 months they're gonna be off for 3 months, and then you're gonna get the 4 episodes that are gonna pay off these 4 episodes of setup that we gave you the first half, and that's gonna, to me, I don't think there's a level of rebound that the final 4 episodes could have that would cancel out if episode 4 is like these last 2. So we'll see. I know I've been hard on this show, but like I said, I enjoyed. I mean, I've been hard on the show this season. I was hard on it all last season, but like I do still enjoy watching it. But like the flaws are pretty damning at this point. They need to tighten this up and stop making it feel like a random collection of scenes. So we'll see what happens. And until then, peace.